hate traffic. Hey, what's up out there? Dave Duford, Final Expense Agent Mentor. Multitasking as I do, both going live, talking about final expense face-to-face sales versus telesales training, and also driving at the same time. And as much as I love to get on the camera and talk shop, my life comes first. So I'm making a important left turn to make sure I don't murder myself and safely get home. And now that I've made it, I feel comfortable going forward and talking. Hope you guys have had a good day. I just wrapped up another day in the field, writing a couple of applications, and even taking a term insurance plan today. Who would have thunk it? But the business presented itself, and there we have it. Probably going to have about, I don't know, about 2,500 in production for the day, and I'll be home in time for dinner. Who can beat that? So the reason I'm doing this is I had a guy, Mr. Steve out of Michigan. If you're watching, thank you. I'm sorry, Scott out of Michigan. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it, buddy. He wanted to do right along with me, newer agent of mine, kind of see how the business is. And as much as I wanted him to get on screen with me here, he declined to. And wanted to have him on to have a conversation about the difference between final expense face-to-face sales as well as versus telesales. And today was actually his first day in the field, seeing what it was like to sell in a face-to-face manner, because what his experience has been for the past 4 to 5 months has been selling over the phone for one particular carrier only. And so it's really interesting, kind of in my questioning of him, what his experience was like relative to what he saw in the field. And I basically asked him to give me some summarizations of what his experience was selling over the phone versus what it was like to see what it was like selling in person. So here's what he kind of gave me as his overall perspective now that he's seeing the difference between face-to-face and telesales. So the first thing he said is the level of trust is greatly superior. The fact is, calling over the phone for Scott was a lot more challenging and difficult in creating an actual connection with people. And that really generally is the case with most telesales environments. I don't think that's anything, different people can do different things, of course, to foster trust. But in general, since you're lacking the body language and really what most of the seniors we talk to are used to buying in person, it's going to obviously be something cause for concern. And so he noticed that one of the biggest things was the trust and rapport in a face-to-face environment is much more significant and much more impactful right away. Whereas on the phone, you have to intentionally create all that and make up for the lack of personal face-to-face contact. So that was a big thing right there. The other thing he noticed was there's a lack of objections and rejection, and more or less just kind of pussyfooting around. Part of that is possibly how I do my presentation. I overcome objections intentionally before they become objections, so I don't have much to deal with on the back end. The other aspect of it too is that when you're on the phone, you just have more resistance. It goes back to that whole lack of trust thing by the nature of how we are selling. So you're going to have more objections. You're going to have more issues with, hey, you got to take a social security number from a person that you've never met before, that they don't know really who you are. And plus, you got to get bank account information. And all these things become more problematic relative to if you're in person, you can get the stuff. Is it a challenge sometimes? Sure, but it's not nearly as much of a challenge as it would be if you're, again, face-to-face. They get to see you. They get to really feel you out face-to-face in a much more normal and effective environment. So there's that big advantage. The other thing that Scott shared with us as well is that it's just a lack of options. When he was in a call center environment selling final expense over the phone, he had one carrier, and that one carrier had to be force-fed to every particular prospect that he got on the phone with. I mean, look, something's better than nothing, of course, but if your mindset is geared towards getting the best product for your clients, and you realize that your product is not the best in every situation, and nobody's product is, there comes a point when you realize, am I really doing the best job for my client? You begin to lose that kind of trust in your product, which is damaging. Ultimately, it's hard to sell something that you don't believe in. And so that was a big difference there. Whereas some carriers he would have written would have been all 3-year return on premium cases at certain circumstances, we would have gotten them full first day coverage. So there's a big difference and a big acclimation to that. And a lot of people, lose out on so many deals in a telesales environment they could have gotten face to face. On top of that, I've heard of telesales organizations having a 30% not taken rate and then a 30% first year lapse rate. I mean, that means that if functionally only half the business written on the spot actually sticks through the first year. And these are from very big, very professional organizations because of the things they've got to deal with, being a one company carrier and having one carrier, one company, and one product. That's just how it's done. And so, that's why I wanted to cut this video, because I thought it was pretty interesting talking to somebody who's actually done this for several months and have gotten firsthand experience running telesales, speaking with people, and having a functional, experience in it. Because it is not the same as face-to-face. It's much different. With all that said, I'm not saying that you cannot be successful in telesales. There's obviously people that are doing it on a continual basis. I just think that if you get involved in the telesales environment, you've got to be of a particular type of person. You've got to be really good on the phone. You've got to be really geared towards that sales process. You got to work with somebody who absolutely knows how to do it successfully and has been proven to do so for a long time. I'm not that guy. That's why I don't recruit guys who do telesales, because I'd do a disservice to them. But you got to work with a group that does it the right way. And you got to be the kind of person that can be chained to a desk for 8-10 hours a day, dialing, smiling and dialing, going through the script, doing what it takes to get somebody closed, and being willing to accept the parameters, maybe by offering less options and not being a broker necessarily. With all that said, there are some of those that do and are successful. It's of my persuasion still, and being in this business for as long as I have, that face-to-face sales is the easiest way to give yourself the best edge of success. And that's very important when you start. You want to make sure you get all the odds to your advantage. Let's see if I'll even reconnect. Okay, there I go. Okay, very good. Not sure if my and nice things like that. So without further ado, thanks guys for listening.